We dive into the world of the Mokens and ask, are they on the brink of cultural extinction?
The lab technician triple-checked the sequencer. The numbers couldn't be right. A human spleen doesn't grow 50% larger than normal. It just doesn't. But there it was, genetic proof that one isolated tribe had evolved something that should take millions of years. When she called her supervisor, he told her to run it again. She had, 3 times. The results were identical. And this was just the beginning. Hidden across the planet are indigenous groups whose DNA contains mutations that violate everything we thought we knew about human biology.
They are the world's best free divers. They spend hours per day underwater. They can hold their breath longer than anyone else. They dive down into the seabed and forage, and they hunt underwater with spears.
For decades, scientists dismissed the stories as myth, exaggeration, folklore passed down through generations. Then they started testing. What they found changed everything we thought we understood about human evolution. Let's start with the tribe that can breathe underwater, longer than any human on Earth, and that's putting it lightly. Off the coasts of Thailand and Burma live the Moken people, commonly called sea gypsies. They have no permanent homeland. They migrated from South China generations ago, and now live entirely on the water, dwelling on boats called kabangs and free diving for food, without any equipment whatsoever. Their entire existence revolves around the ocean. They eat from it, they sleep on it, they raise their children on it. They've been doing this for over 1,000 years, completely cut off from modern civilization. Here's the catch. Moken children can hold their breath underwater for up to 4 minutes. The average human, 30 to 90 seconds max. Professional freedivers train for years to reach those numbers. Moken 8-year-olds do it casually while collecting dinner. For decades, researchers assumed this was just practice, training, technique passed down from parent to child. It's not that simple though. In 1999, vision researcher Anna Gislin from Sweden's Lund University traveled to Thailand to study the Moken. She'd heard stories about their underwater abilities and assumed they were exaggerated. What she witnessed defied explanation. Whenever the tides came in, Moken children would dive down and collect food from depths Gislin couldn't even see clearly. Their eyes were wide open, no goggles, no squinting, no discomfort. They picked up clams, shells, and sea cucumbers like they were shopping at a grocery store in broad daylight. When Gislin measured their underwater visual acuity, she stopped mid-test and recalibrated her equipment. Something had to be wrong. The Moken children's pupils were constricting to a degree never recorded in medical literature. Human pupils aren't supposed to squeeze down that small. She called her colleagues back at the university. "Check your methodology," they said. "Recalibrate." She had. Multiple times, the data was solid. These children could see twice as clearly underwater as European children the same age. Their eyes were physically doing something human eyes aren't supposed to do. But get this, that wasn't even the biggest discovery. In 2018, geneticist Melissa Ilardo from the University of Copenhagen finally got permission to collect DNA samples from Moken communities. The logistics took years. These people don't trust outsiders. They've been persecuted by mainland populations for generations. But Ilardo was patient. She earned their trust. And when she finally analyzed the genetic data, she went silent for a full minute before speaking. Her team thought something had gone wrong with the equipment. Their spleens were 50% larger than neighboring populations. 50%. Think about what that means. The spleen stores oxygenated red blood cells and releases them during oxygen deprivation. A larger spleen means more oxygen reserves. It means longer dive times. It means their bodies had genetically adapted to underwater life in ways that mirror marine mammals, not humans. Ilardo found a specific variant in the PDE10A gene that correlates directly with spleen size. This mutation exists in the Moken at rates found nowhere else on Earth. In roughly 1,000 years, maybe less, this tribe's DNA rewrote itself to turn them into something closer to seals or dolphins than typical humans. Think about that for a second. Evolution isn't supposed to work that fast. When Ilardo published her findings in the journal Cell, the scientific community didn't know how to react. One peer reviewer initially refused to approve the paper, convinced there had to be contamination in the samples. There wasn't. He ran background checks on the laboratory. Everything was clean. The data was real. Humans had evolved marine mammal characteristics in a time frame that should have been impossible. But the Moken weren't the only ones hiding impossible biology. Deep in Tanzania, between the alkaline waters of Lake Ayazi and the dramatic cliffs of the Great Rift Valley, live the Hadza. With roughly 1,300 members remaining, they're one of the last true hunter-gatherer tribes in Africa. They haven't adopted agriculture, they haven't built permanent settlements. They live exactly as humans lived 50,000 years ago, hunting with handmade bows and poison-tipped arrows, foraging for tubers and berries. And they eat honeycombs straight from the hive, with the bees still crawling inside. This is the part that keeps biologists up at night. The Hadza raid beehives guarded by some of the most aggressive bee species on the planet. African bees don't just sting once and fly away. They swarm, they chase, they communicate attack signals to the entire hive. They've killed grown men who stumbled too close to their nests. Yet, the Hadza climb into the canopy, sometimes 100 feet up, smoke out the hives with burning branches, and grab fistfuls of dripping honeycomb while bees cover their arms, their chests, their faces. They barely flinch. Some of them smile while doing it. For decades, anthropologists assumed this was just mental toughness. Cultural conditioning. Pain tolerance built through childhood rituals and social pressure. Warriors don't show weakness. Hunters don't complain. It's psychological, not physical. Then geneticists got involved. The implications terrified the research team. In 2014, researchers from University College London collected DNA samples from Hadza volunteers. The process required delicate negotiation. The Hadza don't trust outsiders any more than the Moken do, but the research team was persistent. When the results came back, lead researcher Alyssa Crittenden had to sit down before reading the full report. The Hadza carry a variant in the SCN9A gene, the gene that controls how pain signals travel from nerve endings to the brain. This isn't subtle. This isn't marginal. Their specific mutation reduces pain signal transmission by approximately 40%. They literally, physically, neurologically feel less pain than the rest of humanity. What would make you scream barely makes them uncomfortable. But get this, that wasn't even the most disturbing finding. Further analysis revealed elevated expression of genes related to histamine regulation. When a bee stings you, your body floods the area with histamine. That's what causes the swelling, the redness, that burning, throbbing sensation that doesn't stop for hours. The Hadza's immune systems process histamine differently. The inflammatory response that would leave you or me in agony barely registers for them. Their bodies simply don't react the same way. Here's the catch. This adaptation didn't evolve randomly. It wasn't a lucky accident. The Hadza have been hunting honey in these forests for at least 50,000 years. Generation after generation, those who could tolerate bee stings survived to have children. Those who couldn't either died from anaphylaxis, succumbed to infected wounds, or gave up on one of the most calorie-dense food sources in the forest. Natural selection carved these genetic changes into their DNA with brutal patient efficiency. The research team debated for months about whether to publish. The implications were unsettling. If pain tolerance could evolve this dramatically in one isolated population, what else might be hiding in communities around the world that science hadn't examined yet? They published. And then things got even stranger. In the jungles of Papua New Guinea, so deep in the wilderness that the outside world didn't know they existed until 1974, live the Korowai. Their treehouses stretch up to 140 feet into the canopy, architectural marvels built without any metal tools. They had zero contact with modern humans until a group of Dutch researchers stumbled into their territory nearly 50 years ago. The Korowai didn't know the outside world existed. The outside world didn't know they existed. And their history includes something that should have killed them all. The Korowai practice ritualistic cannibalism, not often but consistently for generations. They consumed the flesh of those they believed were possessed by evil spirits called kakua. For most populations throughout history, cannibalism came with a death sentence built in. A disease called kuru, caused by misfolded proteins called prions in human brain tissue, devastated cannibalistic tribes across the Pacific. The symptoms are horrifying: uncontrollable trembling, inability to walk or maintain balance, personality changes, dementia, death within a year of onset, no treatment, no cure, no survivors. The Korowai should have been wiped out. They weren't. When researchers realized they'd survived generations of cannibalistic practice, the question became unavoidable. How? When geneticists examined Korowai DNA in the early 2000s, they found something unprecedented. A protective variant in the PRNP gene, the gene that determines susceptibility to prion diseases like Kuru, Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, and mad cow disease. This mutation exists in the Korowai at rates dramatically higher than surrounding populations who never practiced cannibalism. Their bodies had developed genetic armor against one of the most terrifying diseases known to medicine. Dr. Simon Mead from University College London, who spent years studying prion resistance in Papua New Guinea populations, called it a striking example of natural selection's power. What he didn't say publicly, but what keeps researchers in this field awake at night, is what this means for our understanding of human adaptation. Evolution built a shield against a fatal neurological disease in perhaps just a few centuries. No laboratory, no genetic engineering, just pressure, death, and survival, selecting for the right mutations. But there's one more tribe that might be the most remarkable of all. The Maori arrived in New Zealand roughly 700 years ago after voyaging across thousands of miles of open Pacific Ocean in wooden canoes. In that relatively short time, they became renowned as some of the most formidable warriors the British Empire ever encountered. Their traditional war dance, the haka, isn't just intimidation theater. It requires extraordinary strength, explosive coordination, and physical power that left colonial soldiers genuinely afraid. Here's the catch. Maori warriors weren't just well-trained. They were genetically different. Studies from the University of Auckland found that Maori populations carry a specific allele of the ACTN3 gene at unusually high rates. This gene variant, sometimes called the sprinter gene, is associated with fast-twitch muscle fiber composition and explosive power. It appears in elite athletes worldwide, from Olympic sprinters to professional football players. In the Maori, it appears at frequencies found in less than 3% of global populations. Additional research revealed variants in genes associated with bone density and muscle attachment efficiency. Their bodies aren't just trained differently, they're built differently at the genetic level, optimized for combat and physical performance. Dr. Stephen Stearns, an evolutionary biologist from Yale, has suggested these adaptations emerged through intense selection pressure during the long canoe voyages across the Pacific and the subsequent tribal warfare that defined early Maori history. Only the strongest survived the journey. Only the strongest won the wars. Only the strongest passed on their genes. Within just a few hundred years, a population transformed into something physically exceptional. So, what does all of this actually mean? Here's what keeps geneticists staring at their ceilings at 3 in the morning. These mutations didn't take millions of years. They didn't even take hundreds of thousands of years. The Moken evolved marine mammal-like spleens in roughly 1,000 years. The Hadza developed pain immunity over 50,000 years. The Korowai built prion resistance in perhaps just a few centuries. The Maori became genetically enhanced warriors in less than 700 years. Evolution isn't supposed to work this fast. Every biology textbook says major adaptations require vast timescales. But in isolated populations under extreme environmental pressure, DNA apparently has capabilities we're only beginning to understand. And here's the question no one in the scientific community wants to ask out loud. If isolated populations evolved these abilities in just a few thousand years, what does that mean for the rest of us? What dormant capabilities might be locked in your own DNA, waiting for the right conditions to activate? And perhaps more unsettling, what might humanity become if modern populations face the same pressures these tribes did? The answers might be hiding in genetic code we haven't decoded yet. Or maybe they're already inside you, waiting.